Hi everyone, I'm Dan Gosling, also known as the ChopSaver Guy, and I'm pleased and excited to bring you another great interview with friends of ours from the music world. Today I'm speaking with Tom Hooten, Principal Trumpet of the Los Angeles Philharmonic Orchestra. And Tom has been here in Indianapolis performing as guest principal with the Indianapolis Symphony, a week of Mahler's Fifth Symphony, 3 performances, of which I was privileged to hear 2 of those performances. And I must say what a thrill it was to hear Tom playing live again. Tom, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks, Dan. Great to be here.
Awesome to have you here. I also want to thank our friends here at Bolson Group for allowing us the space to conduct this interview. And that was, in fact, Tom at the beginning playing that very famous opening call from Mahler's Fifth Symphony. We do have some questions that we took from our ChopSaver Facebook page. And we'll try to weave those in as best we can. And it's often common to start, with when you're talking about someone's career, start chronologically. I started when I was 8, or now work your way up. I'd kind of like to maybe go backwards. Okay. Why don't we start with what you're doing now? What does it mean when you say I'm principal of a major orchestra like the Los Angeles Philharmonic? And what does that entail? And we'll start there and kind of work our way back.
Okay. So we are a 52-week orchestra, and we have a winter season, which we just finished. And the LA Philharmonic is a really exciting place to be because we're trying to pioneer commissions and stuff like that. So it's a fairly busy winter season from a classical music standpoint. And then when I go back in July, we'll shift into the Hollywood Bowl mode, which is a 18,500 seat venue. Great venue for the LA Phil in terms of our budget and opportunity to reach out on a large scale to people that maybe have never heard classical music.
But you're still billed as the Los Angeles Philharmonic.
Yes.
Not like the Boston Pops changes their name for certain venues.
Right, it's the LA Philharmonic. We play certain nights, but then under the LA Phil organizational umbrella is the Hollywood Bowl Orchestra.
Okay.
And so they play concerts there too. And then the LA Phil, from what I understand, presents other solo acts, like maybe Josh Groban or Dave Matthews or something like that. So it's a really great place to work. It is, I wouldn't say excruciating in terms of the schedule, but it does keep me on my toes, and but I love it. It's a great group of people. It's musically challenging and enriching.
And how long have you been in Los Angeles now?
I just finished my 3rd year.
Fantastic. When you look at the season, or you're looking at what's coming ahead, and how do you balance busy days or busy weeks versus not so busy weeks versus your solo career, your traveling? How does that work for you? How do you make all sense out of all that?
Well, it's kind of a learning process, but I try not to get surprised. I wouldn't say I'm a big planner, but what seems to be the best approach is that I do look ahead, and I have a couple big marker boards in my studio, and I will list about every 3-4 months, I will list chronologically all the playing responsibilities that I have. Everything's mixed. Orchestral demands, and then chronologically I have this solo appearance, or we have a quintet thing. I just want to make sure I have an understanding of what's coming up. But then from the practical standpoint, of practicing, it kind of is motivation to not let anything go.
Right.
Right. If, Alvarado's coming up in 4 months, I don't want to be cramming for Alvarado that week.
Right.
Because then really I feel like it trips me up, and now I'm on damage control. And so what's worked well for me so far is just planning ahead, understanding what my responsibilities are, and then again, like we're kind of doing in this timeline of my career, going backwards to what does that mean for me right now? What do I have to practice? And so hopefully it'll stay working, but it does allow me to integrate solo work and stuff like that.
So let's go to the essence of what a musician is, and that's someone who creates beautiful sounds. In your case, you create them on a trumpet in a big orchestra. But again, it always has to come down to your calling card, your sound. One of the questions that we had on the Facebook page was, they were in high praise of your resonant, this amazing resonance that you get, which is absolutely true. If you've ever heard Tom play live, there is an incredible sparkle, no matter what part of the instrument he's playing, the low register, high register, soft, loud, which is truly remarkable. But I know, as a trumpet player myself, that doesn't just happen by accident. What are you really focusing on when you're that basic sound trying to create out of the horn?
I think, well, I appreciate anytime somebody compliments me on sound or anything. It's always like, okay, well, somebody appreciates it. I love, it's great, because that's why I do what I do. I want to affect change in somebody's outlook and whatever that might be. If they appreciate the sound, maybe there's some collateral benefit to that in their life, in the way they want to be musicians. So that always feels good. I don't know, I could go really technical.
Why don't we go a little technical, just
okay.
just for the trumpet nerds that really want to know, what are you actually doing, but understanding that that's just a tiny part of it. But I think a little bit of that will inform, okay, what is it he does, but maybe more important, what is he thinking about while he's doing it?
I think the first thing that comes to mind is I'm trying to make it as simple as possible. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't start from my lips into the trumpet. That starts with my breath and how I'm holding my body. And I'm still working on this. I still feel like I have room to grow. But the more simplistic and straightforward that I can make my breath go into to my lips, that make them vibrate, goes into the instrument in the most consistent, organic way, then I think the results will be consistent and organic and resonant. And resonance, I think of the voice. When I met Håkan Hardenberger in the last couple of years and was talking with him about how he approaches things, and it's a really vocal connection between, like, even how you hold the soft palate and as a trumpet. I think too many people think of it as kind of like they're trying to sing the soprano part, but they're really an alto. Like they're holding their body kind of, sing with their chest voice. And so I try to really allow myself to sing almost in a way that I would posture my body like a soprano in the head voice. Well, I guess women don't necessarily have a head voice, but men, you can absolutely go to your falsetto.
Sure, right.
And that creates the possibility of freedom. And I guess if my body is, in a sense, vibrating, then hopefully there won't be some effect in that into the trumpet. That's sort of how I'm approaching it now. And
so, do you incorporate things like yoga or Alexander technique or meditation?
I've done all those things. I've done yoga. The Alexander technique, I studied it a little bit one summer and incorporated those things. But these aren't things you own. These are things you practice. It's not an idea. It's something you practice every day. And when I am able to really have the kind of warm-up that I want, which is my job, so I try to make it every day, I do this first thing. It says stretch every day, even if it's for a couple minutes. And then it goes right into breathing. And then breathing turns, I go into making a sound, all while trying to do the things that I did in the breathing. I breathe like this. Well, let's turn that breath into a sound.
So you're stacking.
Absolutely stacking. And I sort of did this in teaching today. I was telling the students, it's not necessarily that here we are and we're going to get better and better and better and better like this, and then look how far I've gone. I think it's more accurate to think, here's where I am and I'm getting better. So I'm actually thinking backwards, like all the things that I know that I think are really good, I'm scanning and I'm aware, and I'm trying to deepen the quality of the absolute fundamental. And really, so then I feel like the possibilities become, it's like twofold. I don't know if that makes any sense, but...
Well, it actually kind of leads into one of the other questions we had. It was, how do you work on weaknesses, and which might also inform how you decide what to practice and when to practice it. So if you're going for these basic fundamentals, are there things that you are like, I know this is something that's just not my strong suit, or maybe there was 5 years ago or something you've since solved, but...
Well, I think one of the biggest things that we can do as students, and whatever you do, you can be a student of what you do, is to be open-minded and creative and curious.
That's a great word. Yeah.
Really curious about, what can I learn from this? And my ego is not involved in this process. And I'm curious like a child. Like, if something was bad, I don't judge necessarily. I mean, of course there's times I'm disappointed. I wanted something to go better. But when I'm in the practice room, I'm trying to do it in the most open-minded, curious, I just felt something. That was amazing. Oh, God, what did I do?
Right. How do I recreate that?
Yeah, like I had an idea, but like, wow, and I'm looking for that again. I'm searching. And I'm really flexible. So like of course I have weaknesses. There's things that I wish they were easier, but I'm curious, and I'm looking for commonality, or I'm looking for, is there something between my weaknesses and my strengths that I fix in my weaknesses that makes my strengths even stronger? Like, and I'll be totally honest, and I have no problems, talking about my weaknesses in public. It's fine. It doesn't bother me, because I'm not hiding them in the practice room, so why would I hide them when I talk to somebody? I hope that that's inspiring to some student, and when I tell them, in college I barely had a high C on my C trumpet. I mean, barely. But recently when I met with Hooten, and he talked to me about some things, and I realized, like, I had no idea how tight I was in certain parts of my playing.
And this is recently?
Recently. This is like a year and a half, 2 years ago. And so I've spent the last couple years really exploring, wow, that where I thought the bottom was,
right.
I realized,
there's a whole other floor.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then it makes all of this like, whoa, wow, this could be really amazing. And it doesn't, and what inspires me, what excites me about that is this makes me a better musician. Trumpet's fine, but trumpet's the vehicle, but maybe it can allow me to say something with even more vulnerability or more power or something.
So you reference warm-up routine. So do you have a set routine, or is that also very flexible?
Yeah, I have to talk kind of geeky trumpet thing, there's an app, and if anybody out there is a app developer and a musician, maybe you could contact me. I'm looking to build an app, but right now I use this thing called Seconds Pro. It's like an interval trainer, because one of the things I noticed in my abundance of energy when I was younger is that I just wouldn't rest enough. And so without rest, not only am I not physically resting, I'm not thinking enough. So this app allowed me to create sort of routines, and you could add drones to them as music tracks. And so I have a routine right now, but usually I don't do any routine more than like 6 months or 9 months. I change it up because I just get really bored and I feel like it gets stagnant. So I do have this thing that I click on, and it sort of says, beep, you stop playing, you idiot, you got to rest. So
you actually have a timer to make sure you're not...
Yeah, I use, it started out as a little, kitchen timer, and then it turned into this, you could use an app for a timer, and then this program, Seconds Pro, totally customizable for the kind of workout routine you want to do. So I can label them. It says double timing, and it says double timing. So, I like it, and I'm not doing anything for an extreme long period of time. Like it literally says stretch 2 minutes, breathing minute or 2 minutes, and then it goes to lip setup, and so it just goes through these things with little breaks. And I change it, and I mess around with it, and like, oh, it's too much break, not enough break.
But you're paying attention to it. You're not. You let it remind you, and you pay attention to those. It's
sort of just like a little guide that says, you can spend more time on this, but like it's kind of time to move on. Because you have intervals, you have scales, you have arpeggios, and you have all these things you have to go through. And the cool thing is, like, if I don't get to it today, I can start there tomorrow in that routine or something like that.
Does that? I'm trying to dovetail in one of the other questions. Of course, people are young brass players especially, always looking for tips on endurance. How do I, get through that recital, or how do I get through this long passage, or just, it could be a kid in a marching band who's got a heavy show, or it could be an up-and-coming, like the gentleman you were just teaching this morning. It's kind of a never-ending thing for all of us. We're all looking to improve that aspect of what we're doing. But I think you did touch on something, and maybe you'll speak more about it, is resting, is knowing how to incorporate, because I think, especially young players, we tend to think of, I'm going to get strong by just beating myself up to get there. And how do you avoid that?
Well, from a logical standpoint, when I was in college, I really had I changed my embouchure in grad school, so I was always thinking about how am I going to play higher, and I had teachers say it'll come. I could really concerned about getting through what today would be considered a pretty basic recital, legend, and what's the Purcell, those are kids in high school are playing that now.
Right.
I was really concerned about this. So logically, I realized at some point, how is some 14-year-old kid who's been playing maybe a quarter of the time I've been playing, how do they have way better endurance than I have? This makes no sense. They're not strong.
And you're a grad student at this point.
Yeah.
You're, just to give some perspective to this to me is, it's fascinating that someone of your stature went through all this. And I think it's inspiring. I mean, it's really cool to see that someone just figured it out and didn't take no for an answer. So I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, it's fine. I appreciate it. So I stopped judging myself on I stopped labeling myself, you're a weak player. You're not a strong player. It's like, well, look, it's the trumpet. I can figure this out. This is not like I have no ability to feel with somebody else. I just don't know how to buzz my lips and use the air in a way that, I think that's possible. Maybe that's the lesson is think that it's possible. That's where you start.
Yeah.
I love the 4 things that Tony Robbins has. This is a little success formula, and he says, know your goal. Okay? And sometimes people don't have that.
Right,
They say, I just want to get better. No, you have to be a little more specific.
Right.
Take action. You have to get in the practice room. And the last one, and a lot of people do these. The first 2 is pretty common. People's like, I want an orchestra job, or I want to get into a grad school, or I wanted to get into a really good college. Okay, that's great. Well, now you got to practice. I think that's pretty logical. But the next 2 are what people, I think, get stuck with. Third, notice the results. Are you actually getting closer?
Right.
Because sometimes we work, and you're marginally, I barely got better, and then you think, well, I'll never get strong enough. That's kind of what I thought. The way that there's no way. I feel terrible when I play. So the 4th one is be flexible. So know your goal, practice, take action. Notice if you're getting farther.
So were you figuring out ways to actually measure that and giving yourself ways to, or just?
I was a struggle.
Yeah.
You're sort of going with it. You're thinking, okay, well, if somebody says, somebody comes to me and says, I have endurance and range problems, and if I say, how long have you had these issues? And they say, forever. Well, it's time to try something different. And I don't judge them. I'm just saying, it's time to take off the barriers of how this is going to happen. We have to be more open-minded.